My name is Kadrian Enya. I'm from Ottawa, Ontario, and this is my story.
What was the moment you realized you were far from normal?
I think being from Ottawa, a lot of Ottawa folks, I love Ottawa folks, but they're scared to leave. And at a young age, I came to Toronto, came just to go to Canada's Wonderland. That's what people from Ottawa would do. They would just come here to go to Canada's Wonderland. And I remember coming down and on the 401, seeing the CN Tower, like you're just trying to see just the top of the CN Tower. And I remember seeing it and being like, oh, I'm going to live there. And I didn't know why. I just thought I was going to live there. And I think when I realized I was far from normal was when I just decided to move here. And at that time, I didn't really have any money. I moved, I found an apartment, and I didn't know you have to pay first and last. I thought you just pay first. And they told me I needed last. They didn't really have last, but I found a way to get last and just kind of came here, 20 years old, with my girlfriend at the time, and just kind of figured it out from there.
How was life like back then growing up in Ottawa?
I would say it was pretty comfortable. Where I grew up, made a lot of friends quickly. I grew up in a very, diverse neighborhood, and we all played basketball. Basketball was the kind of thread that kept us all together. I was in a okay neighborhood. It's relative. Some people would consider it not compared to other ones. It was a government housing neighborhood, so it brings certain attitudes, certain personalities. Basketball was a big thing in the neighborhood, and grateful for me, I picked that up at a young age and made a lot of my friendships through that. And what that did a lot for me was just give me an anchor, because while I was a friendly guy growing up, I always felt like I wasn't as aggressive as some of the other dudes. And so basketball was kind of a way for me to kind of stay away or channel that aggression or find my own type of aggression. My aggression wasn't really like fighting. I never fought. But I knew a lot of people who did in the neighborhood, and sometimes you felt like if I'm from here, I have to act a certain way. But basketball was almost a way where it gave me like a mask. It made me feel like I belonged here because I could play and I could play well. So I was very comfortable in that setting. Made a lot of lifelong friends that I still talk to this day. But again, my upbringing was very rooted in sports and movement and friends, and really just like laughing a lot.
Do you have any siblings?
I have an older brother. He's in Ottawa. He's 4 years older than me. His birthday was a week ago, or a little more than a week ago. Oh yeah, a little older than me. He played sports as well growing up. For some time when I was really young, he was kind of like my idol. So I would just kind of copy what he did. He'd be skateboarding. I would go to Walmart, get a skateboard. He started playing basketball. He started dancing. I just tried emulating him, and that went on for some time until we kind of grew into my teenage years and started developing my own identity and started looking like elsewhere, and that's where sports, because he was playing basketball. I started playing basketball, but I got really, I had hoop dreams, so that was my thing, and I ran with that.
Who believed in you before you believed in yourself?
I would say my mom, definitely my mom. In my family, we weren't big communicators. We weren't super smooth with our words and very articulate with our thoughts, but there was a lot of feelings of love and support. And, when I graduated from high school, I took a gap year, mainly out of confusion. I didn't really know where I wanted to go next. My mom never really, judged me. She always supported me, even when some of the things I was saying perhaps could be challenged. She always supported me. And, when I told her I was going to move to Toronto, she full on supported me. She helped me pack. She bought me the pots, the pans, that important stuff. And I just always felt her support. Some people, perhaps the words of affirmation from family is important, and for some people, they don't get that. I just felt it through the actions. I always felt safe enough to tell my mom what I was doing in my life, the aspirations I had. Some people feel like they have to withhold that from family until it's clear that they've made it in a certain regard. But even for me, when it wasn't really clear how I was going to make it, I still felt safe enough to express that with her. So that's why I feel like she believed me at that time, kind of more than I believed myself. I was kind of saying things like, I'm going to move here and this is going to happen, almost wanting someone else to perhaps talk me out of it. And she never really did.
Growing up, did you have any heroes or people that helped influence you to become successful?
uh, um, Growing up, I would say first probably be Allen Iverson. I just had his jersey. I liked his name, and he had this swagger about him that felt so. We call it aura now. At that time, that was aura. Just the way he moved and seeing how people in the neighborhood that I was intimidated by would talk about him or wear his jersey. It was always the coolest dudes on the court who had a AI jersey. If someone had an AI jersey, like they were someone you wanted to be around. So um, I would say him, at those younger ages. But, as I started to grow up, it was always somebody in some sort of movement, athleticism. Um, After, basketball kind of left my life, it started becoming my football coach. I think why um, he was an idol of sorts. I think also, back to what I said about my mom, is this a sense of someone believing in you? And I think what I really took from him is he was a black man, he was strong, and he was articulate, and he was smooth. He had all these kids, young kids full of testosterone, crazy, running around, and he was really good at commanding us. Not in a violent way, not in an aggressive way, but just in a way of like, he can just speak so calmly, and we're all going to listen to him. And I think right around the years where basketball was starting to go down, I was starting to be inspired by like this form of communication, people who can command a room without having to like grab people by the neck.
What was the moment you transitioned from sports to just training as an everyday lifestyle?
It was during the pandemic. Uh, that's when I started to really realize like, oh, fitness is very important to me. At the time, I lived near downtown. I lived near Riverdale Park, and it's still my favorite park in the city because you have a hill, you have a track, and you have a calisthenics area. So you can get so fit there because you have every single thing you need from a fitness standpoint. And so during the pandemic, I used to go there and just, I didn't really know what I would do. I would just show up there and be like, okay, what am I going to do today? Like, let me close my eyes and point. I'm going to go over there and do something. And I would just post videos about it. And I posted. And then I started kind of just coaching people like friendly, if that made sense. Like people would just reach out and ask questions, and I would spend all this time like, do this, do that. So I did that for some time, and then kind of towards the tail end of COVID, I never really mentioned, but because always kind of keep it to myself, it's intimate. But I moved to Toronto for acting and for modeling. I always I don't really lead with that. I kind of lead with the coaching, but during that time, during the pandemic, the acting industry went on strike. So there was there was a lot going on top of the pandemic and on top of the strike that came from the States up to Canada. Um, I realized like, oh, what am I going to do? Like, I'm already kind of used to this unstable life, like kind of going here, doing a gig here. But I was like, what am I going to do that still brings me life? And coaching felt so natural. And so from then on, I just realized that, oh, I've been training for so long. I've been reading all these books on training just because I liked it. Then I just started reaching out to gyms, and I got into Ferris 360. Shout out in Swanee. He had a call with him. He asked me like why do you want to work with me? And I told him, I'm like, you're a black man. I want to work with a black man. And from then on, that's where I started formally coaching.
Were you self-motivated or did you have a community to lean on?
I would say at that time, I was, if I want to say self-motivated. Um, I saw communities, like there was communities that I wanted to be a part of. I didn't really know how to, if it makes sense. I've always felt like I was good at jumping in a community, but then like kind of jumping in this community, jumping in that community. But at the time, jumping into that, it kind of felt like it was just me. I had people online, but I didn't have like an in real life community. That took a little time. That's kind of where running kind of came in naturally. I was running on my own, and I saw these groups of people running, and they'd get coffee after all the time. All these people getting coffee and running, and that's really where community came in. At the beginning, it felt a little lonely. The one-on-one with people the gym gave me, people that I kind of met through the gym, so more transactional at first. But the natural aspect of the community kind of came later, the later years.
What was your lowest point in athletics for you? Physically, was it physically or mentally?
I would say it was mentally, and I'll go back all the way to when I was 14. I would say that was my lowest point, and it was basketball when I was in grade 10 on the basketball team. My coach was a tough man to the point where at this age, if I were to see him, my heart would probably sink. As a grown man, seeing him, my heart would sink. And I remember he had a lot of anger in him, and he led with that in his coaching style. And we ended up winning the city championships. But I always say it felt like we won because we were scared what would happen if we lost. And I'd say at that time, that's when it really felt the lowest, because at that point, I realized I didn't want to play basketball anymore. And the year that came after, I lied. For grade 11, I saw all the dudes on the team. They were like talking about summer training. We're going to get grade 11. We're going to kill it because we got the team who won last year. We got momentum. And I didn't have enough confidence to just say like, or enough self-awareness to be like, I don't want to play anymore. I lied, said like my grades were bad. My mom wouldn't let me play, And at that time, it felt the lowest because it felt like I took it so personal. Like we were playing this drill. It's called King of the Hill, a closeout drill, where I passed the ball to the three-point line, and then I would run up and I would try to defend guy with the ball, and he would either shoot or pass me. And one morning kept passing me over and over and over and over and over and over. And I remember my coach, he made me do 500 jump squats after. And from that point on, I was like scared to death of somebody scoring on me. It was more of me rather than like the game happening and stepping out and being like, okay, on the next play, like a little less analytical. It was just very emotional. And at that point, that's where it just felt like I couldn't play anymore. And that was very crippling.
Did you have the same coach in grade 9 or you just had him in grade 10?
So funny enough, in grade 9, there was actually like a coach strike. But in grade 9, that coach taught the seniors, the 11 and 12. They also won the championship. But the talk was in the school of like, yo, have you heard about this dude? Like he's a good coach, but not for everybody. Some people loved him. Some people hated him. But I remember one thing he said to me. He's like, Adrian, you're either going to, in 5 years, you're either going to be the best on this team or you're going to be the worst. You're not going to be anywhere in the middle. You're either going to be the absolute best or you're going to be the absolute worst. It's tough to hear at 14. After a whole day of just, I don't know, math, whatever you're doing, and then you're going and this a grown man like screaming. And at the time, we're tough. We're tough, let's go. Scream at us, we'll win. But as the years pass, I realized like, man, that messed me up a bit, and it messed up a lot of friends too that I can speak to now.
So how did you deal with that when you decided not to play basketball anymore?
I use the word hid. I hid in football. After the year ended, the football coach for the seniors was looking for basketball players because of our like carryover to football, and he really made me think I was going to the NFL for some reason. He like recruited me. He just wanted me to play. I never been recruited before. It felt like, it felt like important. It felt like somebody saw me, and he was saying like, I'm going to get you in the the Canadian Combine, this and that. And in hindsight, like I was no way gonna make the CFL, but the confidence he gave me was something I didn't really have. I lost very quickly. And so when I latched onto that, I was really convinced, you know what? Yeah, I'm just gonna play football like very seriously. I don't need basketball. And I was kind of able to hide behind that. But then football taught me how to work out. And that's where we were in the gym. We'd do double days. We alternate in the gym in the morning and then practice in the evening. And then we'd switch the next. And I started training then. I started training. And that's kind of the safety net that I created for myself, was just when I actually just was like, yo, I'm getting D's. And people were like, you're getting big. Like, what's happening? The coach who used to call me like skinny, telling me like I need to work out. He's like, something's happening. And that was like where I started creating this like bubble of safety, it felt like, where people felt like people stopped questioning me, or it just felt like it protected me, you know?
So how do you stay motivated on the days that you're no longer motivated?
I say now, as much as I brought up the word self-motivated, now it's just like, I feel like I have a lot of good people in my life. Like even when I look in this room, I see Lavinia, and I'm, grateful for her to be here and training with her. I was telling her before that when I was training with her, some days I would wake up, I would sleep in and not want to get up. And I check my phone, I see Lavinia just finished the workout. I'm like, damn. I just woke up. She finished the workout like 2 hours ago. You know, those things help me a lot. Sometimes it feels fatiguing to get up and keep doing it. But again, just having a community of people that work hard, it breathes life into me, you know? And also when I see people, some days I'm not feeling the greatest and somebody comes up to me and they say, yo, I saw your race, like you helped me a lot. Like even that day where maybe I might have missed the gym that day, having this community of people that kind of, we give back and forth with just whether it's affirmations or just, good energy with just nice words and stuff. I find, again, just community kind of helps me a lot when I'm feeling a little down.
Did you ever expect this to be part of your lifestyle, training, taking fitness seriously?
I knew fitness would. Training, I didn't. A lot of people would tell me, like, you should train. Why aren't you training people? Train people. Like, it just makes sense. But I never really saw it for some reason. It always just felt like it was just something I did and I liked doing. I don't know, even if you look, say, 5 years ago, I would say maybe, but no. Like, the resistance I had to, like, just getting that first client, so much resistance to, like, oh, okay, I can talk anybody's ear off about fitness, but personal trainer, I don't know how to do that. But again, I always knew fitness would be a part of my life. Even if I were to step away from coaching tomorrow, fitness is always going to be a part of my life.
When you're training others, how do you motivate those that don't have your same self-motivation?
I think a lot of people like relatability. I try to connect with everybody I train with on a very personal level. Some people don't train that way. Sometimes I thought maybe I'm too friendly with my clients because I'm asking them how you doing, you taking a trip soon, like what do you like doing? Some people's style is a little more like you come in, boom, 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 okay, see you next week. I find I just can't operate like that. Like as a human being, if I'm working with someone, whether it's online or in person, and I'm spending an hour with them week after week, I'm like, I need to know who this person is, because this is energy we're sharing. So for me, I find just finding relatability allows a form to show that we're kind of the same in a certain regard. So some people might see me and see that I'm training a lot and be like, I can't relate to this guy. Like, look, he's doing this race, he's doing that. Like, I can't relate to him until we sit down, we have a conversation, and we see we have a lot more in common than one might think. I find that helps. On top of just the very act of me being there, whether I'm coaching someone online or being in person, just the very act of knowing that there's someone there helps people a lot. And sometimes I overlook that. I mentioned that a while ago. Sometimes I overlook that. Sometimes when I'm in a session, I'm like, am I not motivating enough? Sometimes you see videos, but I forget it's a video. It's like 10 seconds of a coach being like, let's go, let's go, let's go. But for a whole hour, they're not doing that. You know, like what it does. They don't do that. They're not gonna do that for a whole hour. You know, there's a certain point to do that, but I realize just being there, paying attention, more important. You know, I can scream for that hour and then just be on my phone editing the video mid-session. So just kind of being there with someone and showing them that I actually care about them and I'm actually interested in their life outside of fitness, their job. That I think helps people a lot when I'm working with them.
Speaking on positive influences, have you had to make any sacrifices socially in regards to fitness?
I would say so. And what initially felt like a sacrifice, which I'll explain, in hindsight, I realized it really wasn't. One for me was smoking weed. Again, when I came up with a lot of good friends that smoked a lot of weed. Like, I'd be passing around a blunt, it's done, and they're rolling up another. I'm like, why? Why? We're already so high. We don't need this anymore. But that was me. And at that time, I was like, okay, because I would just get too anxious. I'm like, I can't be around this. I get anxious. It carries into my day, it carries into my work. It just makes me feel just not myself. I need to kind of exit this environment. So I would exit it, but then at that time I felt guilty. I'm like, these are my friends. Like, I want to be around them. Then I developed enough like confidence to just still be there, but then not smoke. But what ended up kind of happening is just by not smoking, you just don't get invited. You don't get invited, and then you just kind of created your own environment. But then I realized for me, man, that was so important. You know, I still drink here and there, but I don't really have alcohol in my house. Sometimes if I'm out at a celebration, I have some wine of that nature. But at the time, it felt like sacrifice because it felt like I was like saying goodbye to a certain part of myself. You know, because sometimes you had this feeling of like, I remember those days where you just sit down, you smoke, you play like 2K, and you're not thinking about anything else. But what would happen with me if I smoked and played 2K? All I would be doing is thinking about everything. Thinking about, I can't believe I'm doing this. I should be out doing this and that. So what felt like sacrifice at the time really was not that at all. It almost felt like me smoking was me sacrificing something else, you know? And so again, that's just me. I know people that I really look up to who smoke often and they operate at such a inspiring way. But I think it really just comes down to self-awareness and knowing like the things you're putting in your body or the things, how are they, how are they impacting your day to day?
When would you say you develop this self-awareness of the way you treat your body, the way you treat your mind, the way you prep yourself for training or even training others?
So I can name a few key points. I think right out of high school, when I worked this door-to-door job, and this is that kind of job in the interview, you start work. Like you get to the interview and they're like, okay, do you want to start? And you're like, okay. You just go out, and I find that job itself, the training they gave us self-help books for the training. That was the first time I saw these books. Like, typical books you can think of, like Think and Grow Rich and these books. At this time, we're like, yeah, we know these books. But like at 18, 19, you're like, what is this? Is this the key to life or something? At that time, when these books started talking about knowing yourself, and kind of taking that in, it went over my head a little bit, but it started planting that seed. But then I think it was come the pandemic where I really just started practicing mindfulness and meditation. And at that time, that's kind of when, at the time I was already training, but I was starting to really think more about like the input aspect of like what's going in my ears, what's coming out of my mouth, and like what's around me, what's in my house. I was a lot more mindful of my environment. So I think meditation and, just breathing exercise helped a lot with
What is a hard truth about being a man in his mid 20s in 2026 that no one warned you about when you were 18?
Um, I think how embarrassing sometimes you will feel. And I say that because I think as an 18-year-old, or to put it more clearly, I think as an 18-year-old in school, sometimes you're sold this expectation of where you should be in your life at 18. And, oftentimes at that age, you're like, okay, when I'm 23, I'm going to family, I'm going to own this, I'm going to own that, I'm going to live here, I'm going to have a house here, here. But I think when I say the embarrassing aspect is like, sometimes that thought comes over you when, say, you're at a certain age and maybe you're not where you are, or not where you want to be financially or in regards to your relationships. And sometimes you can feel this feeling of embarrassment and a sense of loneliness sometimes. And that at that age of the mid 20s is when you realize like no one can really save you anymore. And I think that's where that I think is the most important thing, that even if you tell an 18-year-old, they won't understand. You tell them like no one's going to come and save you. They don't really understand. And that can sound very dramatic, but maybe just in the simplest way of, coming home after a long day. And maybe there's something going on with whether it's debt you're dealing with or job transition or just unexpected things when you're coming home by yourself or with a significant other too, and realizing you have to deal with this. It's not mom. It's not like you're just going to sit around and mom's going to make a call, dad's going to make a call, and it's all going to go away. It's that you actually have to face something, and probably something that has come up in your earlier years. Maybe your avoidance in some sort of confronting an area of your life that probably see in your earlier years. It will come up again, I think, in the 20s. And in the 20s, I think also is, again, I'm still in my 20s, I'm 27. It feels like you're in this endless potential. People are always like, oh, you're so young. You're so young, you'll figure it out. You're so young, you got so much time. And then you're like, well, time just keeps passing, it keeps passing. And then I think you have this angst as a 20 something. You're like, okay, like I got time, but things are moving. Things moving. People are, loved ones are passing. People are passing, and like time just keeps moving and moving. And then slowly, like you kind of get less and less. Start hearing less and less of that. Um, I think it can just weigh on you a lot. But I do think, again, a lot of people are older than me in my life, older than me, and I'm inspired by these people, and they do talk about a lot of the 20s. It just feels sometimes very heavy and messy. Feels like you're going this way, you're going that way, and it's, say, a long trial period. Yeah.
This whole thing, this concept of time, do you believe when people say, oh, you're young, you have time, do you think that kind of derails you on how much time you actually have?
And that's such a difficult one to answer. Um, I think it can. I think I was listening to a podcast earlier, and it's two successful people, older successful people, talking about the importance of happiness and the importance of slowing down. And I think a trap, say, us young people who are still figuring out what our thing is and what we're going to excel in the future is we hear that and they talk about slowing down, they talk about happiness, and you're like, okay, that's the thing. But we're forgetting these two people who are sitting here in these nice outfits and these nice couches and talking so smoothly. We're forgetting that the 20 years of their life, the 30 years of their life, that was like aggressive, go, go, go. And I think that urgency is something we need. We need that fire. and we need that fire. And oftentimes it is in the 20s. And there's even in when we talk about it in strength terms, when you look at the fastest people in the world, sprinters, they usually peak in their late 20s. Even if you look from a muscle mass component, after the age of 30 is when your muscles starts to atrophy. So there's this peak energy that I think needs to be capitalized on. I say need. Some people might not, but I say need. Perhaps maybe in the future I might change my mind about that philosophy, but it does feel like a need for me. It feels like there's energy that I have at this age I won't always have. And that's why I say timing sometimes can be a tricky thing, because yes, I do have time, but not really.
Let's be honest, Toronto is an expensive city. How do you manage the fitness tax? As in a gym membership, high quality protein, supplements, while being a young guy starting his career?
This is great. Because again, even before coaching, I was really big into nutrition. A lot of people make jokes about sometimes the way I eat. I went kind of, a lot of people on Instagram and the gym know me as this guy who eats like sardines and cottage cheese all the time. And the reason why I started eating that is because sardines is $1.77 and cottage cheese, you can get it for like $4. And the amount of protein you get in these two things is crazy. And so to that point, when, again, I came to Toronto, never worked like a full-time corporate job. I never really knew stability like that. Every job I kind of had was always like each day kind of looked different than the next. So some days there's no money. Some weeks there's no money, and some weeks there's a lot of money. But during those longer droughts, sometimes you do have to get savvy. And for me, that often came with eating canned fish, eating protein powder. And that's kind of how I got a lot savvy. And at the beginning, having roommates, of course, helped a lot. But in regards to the nutrition, I think a lot of people are I don't want to use the word confused, but think that in order to eat healthy, you need to go to these boutique, smoothie shops. Spend $16 on a 20-gram matcha smoothie when you can get protein powder for $100 that has 75 servings. You know what that means? You can get 30 grams of protein 75 times. That's a lot of protein. I eat salmon. I go to a restaurant, I get a salmon dish. It's probably $32. Maybe there's 20 grams of protein there. It's probably $52 I'm paying for some reason. When you can get 100 servings, 75 servings of protein. So at that case, it's like, there's ways around it. But I understand some takes a little more like looking, paying attention. And
What does a bad day of discipline look like for you?
a bad day of discipline for me is if I just get up and let the day kind of just happen. It usually starts, but I will say it's also if I don't catch myself. Like, for example, if there's a day I wake up, maybe I don't need to be up really early that day. And so those days are a little sinister. It's when I was like, oh, okay, maybe I can turn off my alarm this morning. That's nice. I get up, I grab my phone. I got my phone on Instagram. And then I might get into this loop. Oh no, I started my day on Instagram. I messed up my day. When really, it's a mindset. I could just be like, okay, I'm just gonna put the phone down and start again. It's okay. I still have the whole day ahead of me. I think a day where a not so great day is when I get stuck in that loop of like, oh, it's the morning. I didn't capitalize on my morning, rest of my day. And then what ends up happening is the 9 a.m. session at the gym maybe be 12 p.m. It goes later and I'm kind of dragging myself to the gym. And then I kind of get home and I'm like, well, all this time just passed. All this, like, it took me that long to get up and go to the gym and come home. Like, but really what's happening there is just this thought pattern of like, oh, I messed up here. Oh no, it's 6:52. I can't get it all done. And then at the end of the night, trying to cram everything that you wanted to get done all throughout the day. And then going to sleep feeling like you can't sleep yet because you don't deserve to sleep. because you didn't get what you wanted to get done. So sometimes it's just not really planning the next day and just kind of moving. I think it's that you get up and you just get up and moves, just like move to something, get up, go to the gym. Even if you're having these thoughts, just continue moving. Don't like stop and think, should I do that? Should I do that?
So how do you plan for a day? Because you said it comes down to planning. I'm not the best planner. So what do you usually do before the next day to get you geared up for the next day?
For me, again, because I work, I kind of do different things, and my weeks sometimes look different. It can be a little more chaotic. And I'll be honest in saying that I do struggle with that. I do struggle because sometimes my days look different. And again, even being an actor, some days I just get a bunch of auditions out of nowhere that are due tomorrow at X time. When it's tomorrow, I'm supposed to be here, and now I got to move this around, move that around. So, I say that to say like my situation is a little more unique in that I'm not getting up and going to, for example, an office from Monday to Friday, so I can put my gym session here and I can put my gym session here. It's always kind of changing. But for me, in terms of that, setting up my day, in terms of, for me, movement is usually my priority in terms of grounding me. And Spanish or Portuguese, these two things I find is a thing of grounding me, and it's something that I know I always have control over. These two things can always happen. And so getting the movement in usually as early as I can is very important for me. And then always revolving that around the work. Sometimes I have a client here and then I have a gap. I need to get a form of movement in. That's kind of what grounds me.
So you said Portuguese and Spanish. I'm assuming you're learning these languages, and why are you learning these languages?
So I started learning Spanish 4 years ago. I went on my first solo trip to Mexico, and one of my friends was like, you should practice Spanish. He didn't say learn Spanish. He just said, hey, learn a word or two. And I learned a word or two, and then I went there, and people were like, wow, your Spanish is really good. I was like, what? Like, people were like, your Spanish is really good. I'm like, no, it's not. They're like, yeah, it is. I'm like, oh, okay. So I just ended up taking like that, an immersive school there where you can do like 30 hours while you're in Mexico. You wake up, go to school, sit in the classroom. And I remember doing that and being like, I love this. I used to hate the classroom, and I'm like, I love this. And I'm learning a language. Whoa. Like, I'm from Ottawa. I never learned French, and I almost hated French growing up in Ottawa. I almost felt like French was like an enemy. And so I always felt like I was never going to learn the language. And so I started just kind of learning Spanish, and it was so fun. It was so fun to learn, and it was such a great way to practice listening. Because when you're going outside, I was in Mexico. I remember I went to this basketball court, and there was all these kids coming up to me, and they wanted to play with me because I was good at basketball, and I was like not from there, so I looked like a basketball player, proper basketball player. And to them, I'm like this, I don't know, perhaps like this idol. But from my ends, I'm like, wow, look at them. They're speaking Spanish so perfectly. Even though they're not thinking about that, they're just talking. But the whole time I'm like listening to them. And I found that was what I kind of fell in love with, is just this humility. A child walks in the room who speaks the language that I'm wanting to learn. And so he's my teacher. And so I kind of ran with that for a while, came back home, just kept taking classes. And then I was like, wondering, could I do this again? Like, there's a lot of languages out there. Like, could I do it again? Is it just a one thing I can do again? And then I decided Portuguese because there's a lot of similarities in the conjugation and the verbs and stuff. And so I've been doing Portuguese for about 18 months and doing pretty all right. Spanish is a little better, but the Portuguese I feel pretty comfortable speaking it, which is kind of crazy because I'm like, again, you talk about this. Did you see yourself in fitness or training? Maybe, but I did not see myself speaking Spanish or Portuguese at all. Like, people are like, you Dominican, I'm like, I'm a Nigerian. Like,
Speaking of that, you just said you're Nigerian. Do you have any other mixes to that?
So dad's Nigerian, my mom's white Canadian. Yeah.
That's interesting. Have they ever told you their story and how they met each other?
So the thing is, like, they have, but like, not really. Like I say again, my family's not one for like words. especially my dad. You know, it feels like every time I talk to him, it's like feeling like I'm pulling, it's like toothpaste, like I'm trying to squeeze everything out of him. Like, what was your childhood like? Like, I know you're in Nigeria. What did you like? What did you do? Like, even these days, I have a call and he's like, "Oh, I'll call you back. I'm in a meeting." I'll be like, well, "What did you talk about? What was the meeting? Like, what meeting?" And he'll be like, "Ah, we discussed matters." I'm like, "What? Like, well, what happened? Like, walk me through your day. Like, what did you do?" So I say that all to just say, I think they met at like a Christmas party. He came from Nigeria to Ottawa to study political science, and I think he met my mom at like a like I think it was like a Christian Christmas party. And I don't know what happened there. I don't know if he just walked up to her with like some game or something. I have no idea, and I should ask. So thank you for asking.
Do you think your culture impacts your mentality?
You know, when I think about culture a lot, um, for a while, it felt weird telling people I was Nigerian because I didn't really feel Nigerian. You know, until I went to Nigeria a few years ago and saw my dad, um, I felt a little more confident saying that this part of who I am. Despite the fact that I didn't grow up with him, and I grew up in Canada, and I had a lot more different influence, maybe more American influence, more Caribbean influence. But despite the fact I'm still Nigerian, in terms of how culture has influenced me, I look a lot at my dad, and I remember going back home and seeing um, how big like community is to him. And I remember being in his village and people lining up to speak to me because I'm his son. And so less about like me, but about like because of him. So like his son is here, this man, and seeing that, I think my mom always said like remind me of your father in that regard of like he's very big on people and relations. And so when I think a lot about how it's influenced me, um, when I really like study it, I realize like a lot of my father's influence in the way of how it's very important to him to have everyone he comes in contact with to be like pleasant interactions. You know, I look at my life and I like to think most people I come into contact with, it's pleasant. Um, and you know, if not, I try to understand what occurred and try to learn from that. But I think from that regard, while I have this training, the fitness, throughout that all, like really for me, what really moves me is just like connecting with people. I like fitness, I like these things, but what I really loved is just yeah, just connecting with people. Fitness is great. Fitness is good, but like it really is the people, you know. But I'm learning a language and learning how to speak to more people, but finding a way to connect with people through fitness, through high rocks, through these races. It's really finding ways to connect with people, and these are like mediums to help us do that. Or vehicles, you know, a group fitness class helps us connect with people. A run club helps us connect with people, while still, of course, taking care of like our temple and our body.
You said that you like to connect with people. Now, connecting with people, does connecting with people give you more opportunities in life, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think about it in the sense of, um, say everything were to go, you know, God forbid, for some reason, say I just can't coach anymore. Say 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 I broke my leg or something that would mess my identity up a bit because I'm really big into movement and stuff. If I were to break my leg, I think a lot about my community. In many ways, people that would support me, people that would want to help me get places, whether it's help me either financially or help me just physically, but then also help me with like even a career. Like say for some reason I couldn't be a coach anymore. I think about all the people I'm in contact with who are so unique, and some people work here, some people, all these different opportunities. And I think from the connection, that's where you realize like we do all support each other. And I think in that regard, where I do feel safety net of whatever happens in my life. Like, I have good people that we take care of each other in some capacity. It might not be seen on a day-to-day basis, but it's felt.
Do you feel pressure representing where you're from?
Not really. And I guess it depends on where one says they're from. Me saying I'm from Ottawa, I would say today I feel more connected to Toronto than I do to Ottawa. And I would say probably because I've had my most difficult years in Toronto, my 20s, the pandemic, breakups, all of that happened here. And all the support I got was from people here, people that I met less than 5 years ago was here. In terms of the pressure, but if I think about that in another way, maybe more family pressure, a little bit. There's this preoccupation with wanting to be somebody, wanting to be recognized, and there's a little pressure that comes with that. Sometimes even when you're in the public facing, and sometimes I think like, oh, how nice would it be to maybe have a career where I could just be low key, just in the shadows, kind of doing something. Whereas I know for me, I'm like, I need to be around people. I like speaking. I like connecting with people. I like engaging a group. And there is sometimes pressure with that, because it's groups of people, and some days you're not feeling, and you're feeling you have to pulling from this reservoir energy inside of you just to show up sometimes and be a source of strength sometimes when you're kind of like feeling like you don't have much. But throughout it all, like, I realized that pressure is like so important. I think that's why I thrive in it. Like, even this idea of a camera being here and a mic being on me, and the thing that so many things could go wrong, the light could go out, or I can fumble my words or something. My shirt could be inside out or something, and everything's ruined. I like this idea of there's a little pressure, like, and it keeps you sharp, Like, if this was a Zoom call and I was at my house just leaning on my couch, maybe my girlfriend can be in the back and I can be like, hey, I'm talking here, like doing all these things. But I'm kind of going on a tangent, but all this to say, like, in some ways there's pressure from the actual place I came from, being Ottawa. I don't feel much pressure at that, but sometimes just the pressure I put on myself, I would say, is the most. The pressure sometimes to just be someone. And, maybe I'll watch this video when I'm a little older and be like, this guy was, here I am. Like, he needed to chill out a little bit. He was putting so much pressure on himself. Everything was going to be fine. But that's for that guy 10 years from now. But me right now, yeah, there's a lot of pressure I do carry of where I want to be and who I want to make proud. Mom, I want to make proud. People I want to take care of, whether it's loved ones, my mother or my girlfriend, people I want to take care of. Yes. Well, there's a little bit of pressure.
You also mentioned a bit about community and different groups of communities, and one specifically that I remember you saying was High Rocks. What is High Rocks for the audience that don't know what that is?
So High Rocks is a fitness race which combines running and strength training, strength movements. It's usually indoor, but sometimes it's outdoor, depending on the venue. And what it is exactly, it's 8 kilometers, but it's like a 1 kilometer interval. So you're running 1 kilometer 8 times. And in between each one, you're doing some sort of station work. It's lunges, burpees, maybe broad jumps. You do your run, you enter, you go to station 1, you leave, you do your next run, so on, all the way to the end. 8 runs, 8 stations. And I found that very enticing, of course, because it was just blending 2 things together. And I ended up doing a race, like, very short notice, because it kind of just appeared on social media and it was close, and I did it, and I did all right relative to my ranking. And I was like something I'll do again. And I did it again. And 2025, I was just kind of wanting to travel and do them, because if you wanted to do it in Toronto, you had to wait and you had no idea when. You just kind of knew there was going to be one. I just wanted to do one like ASAP. So I was like, let me go to went to Mexico and I did it. And then I came home and went to Houston and did it. And doing these races, people started reaching out, asking about coaching. And then I just started coaching people for High Rocks. Prior to that, I wasn't coaching people High Rocks because I wasn't really talking about it. But naturally, people started reaching out. And then from that, it became like this web, like this network of this person. Now I'm introduced to this other community. And, it was a really cool way for me to kind of find my kind of, for the time being, like my niche or niche in the coaching industry for the time being. Because again, I started coaching just at the tail end of the pandemic, and for a lot of coaches, you're trying to figure out your demographic, the type of people you want to work with. And at the beginning, you're given so many people, so many different ages, and you mesh with some, you don't mesh with others. But I found I mesh very well with people that are training for races and High Rocks. One, because I love doing it, and I can talk about it, but just seeing how motivated people are to do these races, it makes my job so much easier. People will log their sessions. I don't have to motivate them to get in the gym. It's more about the mindset, often. And sometimes just the pressure people put on themselves for these races is kind of my job, is to kind of sometimes help with that rather than just getting them up and moving. And, so it's great to work with those people and then see how the community has just blown up from that, genuine connection I have with people that started with just this race. Like there's one friend, his name was Marcus. I met him during High Rocks, my first High Rocks. I didn't know who he was. I remember, I think he just finished burpees. I finished something, we're tired and we're leaving. And I just saw him and I dapped him up. I didn't know who he was. I just dapped him up. And then we saw each other at the finish line. We followed each other. And then, we ended up going to Mexico together and doing the race. And then I saw him in New York, did the race together. So shout out Marcus. Just that's why I say it's just the community. People were so open to, when I came from basketball, it was just like, it's either you or me. Like I'm scoring, or maybe that's the idea I had about basketball. That's why I grew up with sports. It felt like it's so confrontational. Whereas High Rocks felt very, very supportive. While I was still very competitive, it really felt like we're all here helping each other. And that's what I really loved about it.
That's a very interesting perspective, because I felt like the running community had sort of the same type of aura, but now it seems that the High Rocks community is now starting to take over that aspect.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we're in a day and age now as well, from a health standpoint, where like the benefits of strength training can't be ignored anymore. It really can't. And for people who are running, to support their running, it's important. And for people maybe who don't even run, and you're coming up to someone like, hey, I need to get in shape. Like, what should I do? I'll always say, get in the gym. Like, you want to put on your shoes and run? Sure. For most people, I'll say, get in the gym. Because I will say, from more physical standpoint, strength training is a little more soft on the body than running. It can be difficult, but some people, running is hard. Not just hard mentally and like because you're gassed, but like it exposes a lot of weak links in your body, which can kind of turn you off to fitness in general. Where you're like, oh, running's bad for me, and I don't train because every time I move, like something going on in my knee and my hip, so I'm not even gonna move. Whereas, again, what I say with High Rocks is it is very welcoming. As intimidating as it can be, you see like on their pages, you just see they post a lot of people who are in their late 70s, people who are walking, doing these races, and it looks cool. People like to look good, and the cameras, the venue, people come, everyone takes photos of you. You looks cool, and you feel like and we talk about like what's an athlete, you feel like an athlete when you leave and you say, this is your name, this is your country, this is how you did this station, this station, this station. It's a great feeling.
Have you sustained any injuries that are ongoing, or when you have to deal with those injuries, how do you go about it?
So I have last year, when I really started taking running seriously, hiring a running coach, I developed like this sort of like issue with my the inside of my foot. I'm completely forgetting. Oh, my tibialis on the inside of my foot. There was like this aggravating pain that would shoot up from like the arch of my foot up like my shin, and I don't even know what to do at the time. I went to see a physio, and it helped me out. And to an extent, I did the exercises, but it's interesting how, from a trainer point of view, when you're hearing people talk about their injuries, sometimes you can answer with this you understand, or the steps and what it takes. But when it actually happens to you, some of that goes out the window. Like when I'm talking to someone else about their feet pain, and I'm like, "Oh, have you done this and this and this and this?" But sometimes for me, when I'm now dealing with it, some of that goes out the window. It gets very emotional. I'm like, "Oh no, I need to run. Oh, I have this race coming up. Like this needs to heal tomorrow." But when I'm not injured and I'm talking to someone, I'm like, "Hey, it's going to take time." It's sometimes hard to take the advice that you give. And so I say that to say, like, it has been ongoing because, I'll speak honestly in the ways like I haven't taken care of it in the most responsible way. I would sometimes just sit around, do other things, and then it stops hurting and I would go back. So it was this ongoing basis. And honestly, I will say that's kind of where high rocks did come in for me, because I developed this, pain in my foot training for a marathon, and training for high rocks. I was actually able to actually run a little less, um, and still train in a very progressive way, still reach goals in high rocks while still, dealing with my foot. And so again, um, more specifically, I'll be honest, I like moving weight. I like, maybe because I'm young, I just like picking up heavy stuff and moving it. And I know I can't do that for long. And, I think whether it's joint pain, it's certain things I'm starting to feel now that's indicative of that. Um, but, I'll be real at that. I don't always take the advice I dish out to people, because I'm starting to deal with this elbow pain lately. I'm still going to gym because I want to do pull-ups. And I still pull-ups. I love pull-ups. I love, I love them, and I still do them, despite the fact that I'm like, like, I shouldn't have done that. But sometimes I think that's the lesson. The lesson sometimes is that pain, like physical pain that you have to deal with, get humbled by. Because there might be a day where I'm doing pull up, I have to stop. I cannot do one more. It hurts way too much. But your body's just like, sit down, man, just sit down, go home, go watch TV. So in terms of now, in terms of how I've been dealing with it, from a more like educated response, I'll talk to my elbow more specifically, because I'll be honest, it feels like I can handle that better than I can handle my foot. Has been finding ways to still load my elbow while not completely going off of it. So there's some people that are like, "Oh, I'm dealing with elbow pain, or I'm dealing with foot, and I'm not going to do anything. So I'll just sit at home and it'll feel better," and it will. But it doesn't address. There's something that you still need to address, where there's a certain weakness here. So what I've been doing now is, like, new for me, is just wearing straps. I've never used straps in the gym ever. I used to pride myself in never wearing straps. And so now using the strap, and I'm still able to load my elbow just a little bit less. And on top of that, using mobility exercises for my wrist, because I'm looking at my elbow, but we're forgetting, like, the wrist affects the elbow and the shoulder affects the elbow. So spending a lot more time here, rather than like my elbow hurts and I'm just here all the time trying to fix something here, where there's areas here that I need to focus on. So again, just kind of going back to changing my ways of thinking, where I was like, "Oh, I'm strong, I don't need straps," where it's kind of like, I think the strong move here is to get straps.
So, what advice would you give any person that's watching this video when it comes to being an athlete, when it comes to your journey?
The advice I would give is that, I remember there was this like PSA on like Teletoon or something, YTV, this old thing where it was like this kid, and he's like, "What's your thing?" And then the guy's like, "Oh, my thing's sound effects." And this guy's like, "My thing's this." And then and then at the end, I think he said, "Not everybody's good at everything, but everybody's good at something." And I'm always reminded that when I'm working with clients, because sometimes I'm working with a client who's like an audio engineer. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" Like, he's like, "Sorry, I missed my session. I was in the gym I was at the studio mixing this." And I'm like, "Well, like, how do you do that?" I have another client like, "Oh, I was in like these executive, like, I don't know, just even when I talk about it, I don't even know how to use the words that do that position justice, but he's on Zoom meetings doing stuff, like talking very high level things." And so my position as a coach is to understand that like all of us are like kind of good at things. We're really good at things. And I think the game is really carrying over those patterns. You know, there's some people where sometimes they're 10 minutes late to their session all the time, but these people are like high level in their career where they're 15 minutes early to every meeting and they have their prep. Whereas even for me, I can always be early to the gym and sometimes I'm late with other things. Maybe I'm late with invoicing. I'm late with the computer admin things. And so I say all that to say is that most people already have enough to start. They have enough comprehension. They have enough discipline in other areas of their life to understand it's the same thing. If I were to walk up to someone who's done very well for themselves financially and maybe their health has taken a toll, but I go up to them and say like, hey, I want to be like you. Like I've been maybe working in, I don't know, I've been working in real estate. I want to get to your level. Like, what should I do? They're going to tell you, hey, it takes time. It takes time. It takes just daily, consistent actions. And it's the same thing with fitness. That same person who's very highly achieved in their domain can feel like fitness is like, how do I do it? How do I do it? But it's almost the same philosophy. It's like a little bit every day rather than like intense bursts that are all sporadic. And so that's what I say. It's just you already kind of have enough. You can just show up in a gym and just show up in a gym for at least 3 months, 6 months straight. Like if you go to the gym twice a week, 3 days a week for 6 months, 12 months, and nothing changes, then maybe we can have a conversation about like something's got to change. If you're in the gym for a year, 3 days a week, something's going to happen. And that's really what I'll say. Don't worry about the reps, really. All I say is get into a gym, find a few exercises that feel comfortable, and do them until it kind of feels hard. So just keep pushing a weight until it feels like you can't push it anymore. Don't worry about, should I do these reps? Should I do this rep? Pick a weight that's heavy enough that you can move for a few reps, but just push yourself. Just learn how to push yourself. Don't worry again about the muscle names. You don't need to worry about you. I've kind of went my whole life. Still to this day, there's certain muscles where I'm like, what's that called? I don't even know how to pronounce that. But that's okay. I don't need to know how to pronounce it. You know, there's someone else who was an exercise scientist. He knows how to pronounce it, and he knows why it's named that because there's some dude who named it that reason. Because I don't know that. I don't need to know that. I don't want to know that right now. I just want to again take care of myself, help people take care of themselves, and know that. Again, it really just we move. Like, again, one reason I like strength training or staying healthy is because I love traveling. I want to be able to go somewhere, climb a mountain, and be at the top, and not have to be like, oh, I can't do this because I'm out of shape or because I'm just wheezing. This high altitude, I can't breathe. I don't want my body to be a hindrance because the body's delicate, and while it's strong, it is delicate. And you know, there's so much that could happen. You walk outside in these polar vortexes, it's ice out. You could slip, you're done. You know, I don't want to slip. You know, so training in the gym, training jumping, training heavy movements is that your reflexes stay intact. So all this to say is like, you know, fitness helps us like just live a fulfilling life, a healthy life. You know, a healthy life. Sometimes that's hard to measure because you can't measure that, you know, with numbers sometimes. Of course, you can hop in a scale, but the scale is so, it can confuse people, you know. You confuse people because it doesn't really tell you what's going on under. So for me, like fitness is very holistic. Fitness is very about the mind and about the body and about like just feeling comfortable and feeling happy with the way you look. As much as I like the way I look. I like having muscle. I know there's going to be a certain time where it's not that important to me anymore. But I know right now it is because I'm an actor, because I'm young, and I like looking attractive on camera. I like being able to take my shirt off and feel good about myself. But I'm aware that as time passes, I get older and I start to let go of certain philosophies. You realize like you just want to be strong enough to like support people, you know, support my mother, support loved ones. And that's why I say the gym does for me. It just helps me support people. So again, just get in the gym in whatever capacity, pick an exercise you like. And another thing, as much as we can say it, like, man, ChatGPT, ChatGPT will help you so much. You say, hey, I haven't been to the gym in 17 years. I don't know what to do today. There's a problem with my left knee. Can you help me out? I want to go twice a week at this time. This is the exact gym I go to at. This is the address. Do you know what exercises they have there? What would help me out? And what should I also eat? Some people might be like, you're a trainer. Like, don't say that. But it's like, what? If you realize people work with trainers, oftentimes it has nothing to do with like, because you have knowledge, of course, like that goes without saying, but it's the accountability factor, you know? So some people are worried that like ChatGPT will take your job away, but the people you're gonna work with, they're gonna work with you. They're gonna work with you, one, because of the accountability factor, and then one, because the thing I talked about before is connecting with people. So I'll always tell people use ChatGPT. I mean, if that's your thing. If you're against AI, hey, that's all good. But I can go on most people's phone here, and ChatGPT was probably the last thing opened. So again, there's so many tools today, but as well, there's so many tools you can get on ChatGPT, and it can talk to you for 6 hours about the best exercise to do. When really the best exercise is just get in the gym, just do something, and then maybe later, once you've been there for 3 months, 6 months, and then someone's like, maybe you shouldn't do that. Try this. At that point. But a lot of people aren't at that stage. It's like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, don't worry about that. Just what you got to do is you go. That's what you got to do. Don't worry about that lunging. Don't worry about barbell squatting. Don't worry about leg press. You just need to worry about putting on your shoes and buying that membership. And it's going.
Kadrian, it's been a pleasure having you. And thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.